Welcome back to the OurSF Hour. I'm your host, Ryan, Splash, whatever you want to call me. I'm joined with Raj, per usual. How's it going, Raj?
I'm good, man. It has been a busy week. Finally, actually have time to just relax, kind of, and not have to worry
Absolutely.
about much. The draft week was fun and exciting, but it's hectic, it's busy. But the Niners, I feel we had a heck of a draft, and we'll talk about that today. Kyle Shanahan finally got his. We finally figured out who Kyle Shanahan's guy after all the speculation, weeks and weeks and weeks of speculation that we sat here. We finally found out who Kyle's guy was, and it was Trey Lance, North Dakota State quarterback. And I'm happy as can be with it. I think he's a great quarterback, and he's going to be a beautiful piece for this future. And I think Kyle said it. He saw him on the tape, he saw him on the film, and he fell in love with him, not only in his skill set, but the person. And you could already tell this kid's got a good head on his shoulders. He's handled the media well. So I'm doing great because we have a future franchise quarterback, and there's so much to talk about with Trey Lance and the rest of this draft class that the Niners had.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. I have a clip from Lance right after he was drafted right here. Let's play that.
Trey, when did you find out? And what does this mean?
I just found out 2 minutes ago.
You really did?
Yeah, I really did. And it means the world. I'm super excited, blessed, and just thankful for everyone that helped me get to this point.
Well, there is a long line of quarterbacks in San Francisco, Hall of Famers from Joe Montana to Steve Young. Where will Trey Lance fit in that line?
I'm just super excited to get to work, super excited to get to know my teammates and get in that locker room.
And what can the 49er fans expect? What are they getting?
They're going to get everything I got. I promise you that.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
DJ? Trey,
Honestly, I'm not a 49ers fan, obviously, but that was really cool. I'm super excited. Like, as an NFL fan, I'm really excited for Lance to get, Kyle Shanahan, get Kittle, Ayuk. We'll talk about it. But, if you can hype me up in 40 seconds of, this random interview that every player does, I love it. So I can't wait to see Trey Lance on the field for San Francisco.
Thank you. Trey area, right? Everybody's calling
absolutely.
the Trey area, Trey to the Bay, all the nicknames. I mean, it's the hype is already assumed. Everybody's excited. And I think that's the word, is excited. Everybody wants to see this kid play. He's 20 years old. He'll be 21 tomorrow. He can't even drink until tomorrow yet, legally, which is crazy. 20 years old, bright future ahead of him. He has the potential to be a superstar in Kyle Shanahan's offense. You have players like Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, the O-line that they've revamped. Even taking Aaron Banks in the second round. That was a good pick. We'll get to that. And then, Alex Mack, everything. Raheem Mostert and the running back crew. He's got a position. He's in a perfect position. He even said it this week. He said, I feel like this is the perfect fit for me. I know I'm in a golden opportunity. It's just everything's lined up. And we talked about this before. Any quarterback that would have been drafted by the Niners would have been in a perfect position to succeed. You have a great head coach, Kyle Shanahan. You have a wonderful system of weapons and talent around you, and you have a good front office. So Trey Lance has so much potential, man, to blossom. And they don't have to rush it. They could wait on him. They could let him sit and develop like Patrick Mahomes did a couple years back, Aaron Rodgers. But this kid's smart, and that's what Kyle Shanahan said. They said he really picks things up fast, and all the analysis have really said this guy is so smart. Shanahan gave him the playbook already on Saturday last week after he got drafted. He expects him to get it, cracking. Rookie mini camps on the 14th, and we'll see how far along Trey's going to come, and I think his training camp's going to dictate how fast they start him, and that's something people have been talking about. But honestly, this kid has all the tools to succeed. And like he said, which was kind of nice, in that interview clip you showed, is he said he didn't even know until 2 minutes before. Kyle knew. He said that was his guy from the start. But he didn't let anybody know. All the smoke screens, that was something I really took away from this whole draft process is, the big media was talking, Ian Rappaport, Schefter's, Mac Jones. And they all thought it was Mac because Kyle had his certain prototype guy. But he went away from that, and he really pulled the wool over everybody's eye. And the clips you're showing, look he's got a cannon. He can run. He can escape. Like this in Kyle Shanahan's offense is going to be deadly. Just look at that. I mean, oh, man. To be able to escape, elude, stretch the offense. He can navigate the pocket, and that's what we want. We want someone that can do it all and be a threat. And when you're a defense, you're not going to be able to game plan easily for him. When you have a drop back quarterback, it's pretty simple. You get a pass rusher, You rush him as hard as you can, and if he escapes, good for him. That's probably not going to happen every time. When you have a guy like this, he can escape, buy time, receivers can get open. It's going to be scary offense for this team with Trey once he develops and hits his ceiling. And his ceiling, I think, is the reason why it's so intriguing to get a guy like Trey, and that's why you take him at 3. Because I think out of all the quarterbacks that were, there this year in the draft, and we've said it, he probably has the highest ceiling. He's still raw and developing. This kid can become the next great superstar. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, people have said that. He has that potential. And with Shanahan, I think he can unlock it. I mean, look at these plays. Oh, man.
This is just awesome. So when I watch Trey Lance, the only concern I have is he only has like the 1 year, right? He only has 300 dropbacks, 320 dropbacks, something like that. I think it's the fewest a first round pick at quarterback has ever had. It's up there with like Trubisky, Achilles Smith that are the 1 year starters.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my only concern. And how much of that do you think will play a role in the NFL? Do you think because he only has the 1 year of experience, he might have to wait? He might sit on the bench a little bit longer than Patrick Mahomes did. Mahomes sat for 15 games. Or do you think that's a positive that he only has 300 dropbacks of FCS football, so you're not trying to work over thousands and thousands of reps. You're working over 300 reps. So how do you think his lack of experience will help or hinder him in the NFL?
So I see it 2 ways, and that's a good question because there's a lot of people making a big thing of this. And you're right. There is some, inexperience levels there, and that's something that they have to take in consideration. And that's why I think Shanahan said, hey, look, here's the playbook, learn it, let's get it going. And they're going to have to really push him hard in training camp because he hasn't played football. And also not only having that one season, they didn't get to play last season. And I think that was something that really took away from his development is because of COVID last year. They didn't get to play last season. So that's unfortunate. I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to start pushing them and getting into those reps, especially in practice and everything. And I know, and the CEO, Jed York, said, hey, it's okay. We're comfortable with letting him sit for 2 years. To me, I think 2 years is too long. And I know great quarterbacks have done it, and then they've sat and they've learned. And I think it's okay to do that, learn it, process it. But I feel at some point you got to get this kid involved earlier than a lot of people think. I wouldn't be surprised if he did start week 1. I'm not saying that he will because I think Jimmy has command of the locker room. He's the leader. He's got a little bit of a head start, a lot of a head start on the playbook. He knows it. But it is going to be a competition. Jimmy didn't get to play last season, a lot because of the injuries. And Trey's missed a lot of time, like I said, because of COVID. So I think it does hinder him in the fact that, okay, he's a little behind. NFL game speed's a lot different than the college. And he played, he didn't play in the top leagues of Division I. So that's something people are going to hold him back for. I know he had 17 starts. Mac Jones had 17 starts. Granted, it was in Alabama. So it's all relative in that sense. But I do think that they need to kind of push him in. I think by week 1, if he has had a great training camp and he's pushed himself to the point where, like, you got to play this kid. If Jimmy starts, I think there's still going to be packages that they sprinkle him in, Trey action packages, I call it, that you put him in, kind of running different options here, RPOs, running plays, wildcat, get him comfortable, kind of like a Taysom Hill kind of thing, like the Saints have done and employed over the last few years. I think just to get him comfortable, get him those reps. But you got to get him some throwing reps too, because like you said, he doesn't have a lot of tape on that. And I think it's not a bad thing because he's going to come in fresh. Like, he's 20 years old. He's got a long time to develop and learn and get those reps. But I think at some point you do have to kind of get him in there and get him down to throw, because one of the things people have downgraded him on is his accuracy. You can't get better at throwing if you're not throwing. So you do have to get in there and get those reps in. And I think they will early. Whether he starts or not has to be determined. And I think that all depends on how fast he progresses in training camp and how he picks everything up as far as the playbook. Because Kyle Shanahan's playbook's not easy to learn. But you got to remember, when Jimmy G came in to the Niners a couple of years back, he had, 2-3 weeks maybe to process everything. They threw him in the lineup. They were 5-0, and they didn't have a good team. So everybody says he's not ready. He's not ready. Trey's not ready. He's going to have a whole training camp rather than 2 weeks to learn this playbook. He's a smart kid. He's 20. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's had to prove people wrong his whole career. they wouldn't scout him in college, or they wouldn't recruit him as a quarterback. People want him to play defense and other positions. So he's already had to deal with this adversity. I think he's going to be just fine. And I think actually that adversity is going to be good for him because he's responded well so far in his young life to that adversity. So it'll be interesting, but I do not think it's going to hurt him. I do want to see him play a little earlier than most people say, because some people say don't rush him, don't let him. You got to see what you got in this kid. You drafted him 3rd overall,
So I think it's an interesting point. I heard it on PFF. I've heard it on some of the people that like analyze these drafts, that Trey might be the kind of guy that even though he has 320 dropbacks, I think it works to his advantage, because when you say Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, the guys with lots and lots and lots of attempts, Lawrence was a 3.5 year starter at Clemson, 2.5 year starter at Clemson. Fields has 2 full years at Ohio State. You can develop bad habits. Like, we generally think of experience as a good thing, but there's also a universe that Trevor Lawrence might get too comfortable in his mechanics, and it's not as polished as you might think, and he might not be this, he might not be that. Trey Lance doesn't have that. He doesn't have bad muscle memory. Now,
that's true.
On one hand, he doesn't have good muscle memory, but who can teach him good muscle memory? Mr. Kyle Shanahan can.
Yeah.
So you're looking at if his problem is accuracy, he has 300 throws that say he is not a super accurate quarterback. Well, Kyle Shanahan, he's going to have him for probably thousands of throws in the offseason, 500 throws a year in the NFL, and I think you're going to see Josh Allen improve his accuracy, Lamar Jackson improved his accuracy, and I think Lance is at a higher starting point than they are, and Lance also doesn't have 3 years of inconsistent mechanics like Allen had at Wyoming. I think he was a 2-year starter, or Lamar had at Louisville. So you're looking at Lance, again, coming in about 300 dropbacks, 300 passes, whatever you want to call it, and he doesn't have to unlearn bad things. Like, it's not entrenched in his football DNA to like throw a football inaccurately. So Shanahan just kind of has this blob of clay that, while is a little inaccurate, you can mold it to be a very accurate quarterback. And this is like brand new Play-Doh we're talking about. He's 20 years old. This is brand new Play-Doh. This isn't like some elementary school Play-Doh that you've had for 10 years. You can mold Lance into a pinpoint passer, I think. And that's really exciting for 49ers fans, and it's really exciting for me as an NFL fan in general that, San Francisco is getting a quote-unquote project, but the project aspect is so moldable, and you can get so creative with it that I was on the show a couple weeks ago and said Justin Fields would win MVP in 2025 if he was drafted by the 49ers. I think Trey Lance can fit that same timeline. He might even hit it sooner. So you could be talking about a special quarterback. Back in the clip we played, the interviewers asked about Joe Montana, Steve Young. Trey Lance might be number 3 in that list.
He possibly, and like he says, he's just excited for the moment. He's handled everything so well. His answers were great. He's not sitting here thinking he's going to be the next great quarterback. He's got a long way to go before he's in that conversation. But you're right. He's young, and I like that what you said. He's moldable. He's like this young, fresh out the box. He's ready to roll and prove himself. 20 years old. He's got a lot of years left, and I agree. He doesn't have a lot of bad mechanics or bad habits because of the fact he hasn't played much yet. And I think Shanahan knows that. And he knows going into this, he wanted a guy that he can develop. And when we talked about this before, this is his baby. He wants to nurture it and develop. And out of all the guys, this is the guy that you can develop the most, because we said that, he's that raw developmental prospect. This is the guy that out of all of them, you can actually sit here and teach your traits. You can teach your mechanics, because a lot of these players, they've already got certain things that they think of. Okay, when I do this, I got to do this. Trey might have some tendencies, but they're not set in stone. And then he didn't play a whole year, so he just wants to. Trey Lance just wants to learn right now. He just wants to soak it all up like a sponge. And when you're like a little infant and you're a toddler, you see something and you want to learn that. I think Trey's at that stage right now, and he's just ready to come in and just soak it all up from Shanahan. And I can't wait, because training camp, rookie mini camp is in 2 weeks. And you know Trey's just going to be ready to go, oh, man, I can't wait to try this. Show Kyle. I want to show Kyle this that I've been working on, and I've been doing this, and let me see if he thinks this is good. I could tell he's pretty excited. And as far as that, as far as what he's training and things, he's already training with Brandon Ayuk. That right there, to me, is so amazing. Like when I saw those posts, he's working with the Spellman Performance Group out in California, and they have him training with Brandon Ayuk. They've also trained with Richie James, who is a wide receiver on the Niners, and River Craycraft. So he's kind of already working with some of these young players on this team. That is going to go a long way in building his relation with this team and the chemistry, especially Ayuk. Those two guys are going to be the future of the Niners. And it's fun to hear that and fun to hear those, see that. There's the pictures, courtesy of Spellman Performance. I mean, that's just amazing. He's been in the league a week, and he's already training with his potential wide receiver one on this team of the future, man. And that's why I could tell this kid wants to learn and grow and develop. So it's amazing to see that.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see this. You take a quarterback at 3 and you think, oh, it's going to be a long rebuild. No, San Francisco is in a position that they can compete now. And I think if you get a good offseason out of Trey Lance, this is like I don't think a rookie quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
No.
Trey Lance has as good of a chance as anyone in, I think, NFL history, because most top quarterback prospects are going to crappy teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to the 2-14 Colts and for Andrew Luck. You're going to the 1-15 Jaguars for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Trey Lance is going to a team that 12 months ago went to the Super Bowl. Are you kidding me?
24 months ago in Super Bowl. Last year we were 6-10, but you got to remember the injuries dictated a lot of that season. Half our team was on the injured reserve, so you take that season with a grain of salt. And they still competed, still had a top 10 defense, and we know the players that they have on this team. You're right. You can put in Trey, and I think they could win 12 games this season with him. And it's not to say Jimmy can't either. I think whoever's at quarterback is going to win a lot of games because the way this team is set up, defense, offensive, they have a great team. The thing with Trey is if they do play him and he starts a game, let's say whatever, Jimmy gets hurt or whatever, Trey can have success because you don't have to throw the ball 15, 20, 30 times in this offense. Right. You can hand the ball off, run the ball. Debo has those motion plays, end arounds, and things like that. And there's so many different things that Kyle does that would give a quarterback success. And like you said, no quarterback as a rookie has went to the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl for that matter. But I think the Niners do have a decent shot compared to most teams in the future because the point you made, and we've said this many times, most of these rookies that come in top 5 pick, they go into a rebuilding team, and that's not the Niners. We're not rebuilding. We've basically just got healthy again. We kind of retooled a little, and we revamped the O-line. And this team is so dangerous on paper. If you look at this team, you look at some of the players on the roster: Trent Williams, Alex Mack. You got George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Jason Verrett, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. It's crazy, man. This team has a lot of talent, and they're going to have a good season if they stay healthy.
Absolutely. So speaking of retooling that offensive line, with the number 48 pick, you guys selected Aaron Banks.
Money in the bank.
I think probably guard, right?
Yeah, he's
out of
guard.
Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking? What was your immediate reaction when you heard Aaron Banks get his name called?
So there was a mixed reaction from the fans. Some people didn't like it because there were certain players at that spot. You get stuck on players. I think Asante Samuel was drafted right before us, and that was a guy that a lot of fans wanted. The Niners traded back, actually. They were working hard on this draft. You can tell they drafted. They moved back a few positions, gained a couple positions. They turned a 7th rounder into a 4th rounder in this trade with the Raiders. They leveraged themselves into position to get the guys they wanted. And then the other guy that they passed on that people were like, oh, they could have got Azeez Ojulari. That was one guy I think they could have made a move and grabbed him to add some extra defensive edge help for Nick Bosa. But I think they feel comfortable with what they did in the offseason. They added Samson Ebukam and DJ Jones. They have Kinlaw. They have Armstead. Bosa's coming back. D Ford, hopefully they're banking on him being healthy. That's a big if. I think they felt comfortable, so they wanted to go to lineman. And I thought this was a good pick. They have not had a big-time guard in many years. This guy could be a solid 5, 6, 7 year, 8 year pro for this team. And you get a guard that becomes a good player in this league, he sticks around for a long time most of the time. So I think this was a good pick. Notre Dame develops great linemen. We've been needing stability on the O-line. Last season, we were pummeled with injuries. Pass protection was something that was lacking. And this guy is a big bully. He's a baller and a mauler. And that's what we've lacked. We have a lot of like athletic guys on this O-line. We don't have that just physical, just bruiser. And he says he wants to punish people. That's what he said. He goes, I like to hurt people on the line. This is the guy we need. Is if you get a franchise quarterback, you want to protect that player for years to come. And now we have Trent Williams, Alex Mack. Those two guys are your solid veterans on the line. You know, you have Laken Tomlinson. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Brunskill, 1 year deal. He may not be back next season. So this guy Banks, you got him for at least 4 or 5 years. McGlinchey, they re-signed his option. So on the right side, you have McGlinchey and presumably Banks. Those two guys played with each other in college. They have a good chemistry already. So I think that's going to help McGlinchey. You know, McGlinchey was a guy that had a down year in pass protection last season. I think this really helps him because I don't think mentally he was there. And getting a guy like Banks, I think, is going to help him and solidify that right side of the line. And again, let's take a look at these highlights. Again, this guy can pull. He's a mauler. He's tough, man. And that's exactly what you want in Kyle Shanahan's system. I think this guy was a phenomenal pick. What did they say they said at the press conference after the draft that they actually had him at 43. So when they traded back, they felt comfortable that he was going to be there. And this was their guy in the second round. So
absolutely. You can talk about other offensive linemen that were available. I know Sam Cosmi went a couple picks later, but I think San Francisco did get a player they wanted, and they got a player that I think is going to be a great team fit in San Francisco. And you're looking at a guy that is going to – look at the basketball highlights.
This is him in high school. Yeah, he plays some – I posted – I wanted to show how versatile this guy is. He moves pretty good for a big guy. Yeah. Look at this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's athleticism. And Kyle Shanahan, he wants athletic guy. Look, he's a big guy, but he can move, you know. And you got a potential 4 or 5 year starter in the second. That's what you want. When you draft players in the first, second, third round, you want starters. This guy's going to be a starter for this team, man.
Absolutely. And that's there you go. You have a starter. I think you're going to get 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. You know, you get, like you mentioned, when you get a guard, when you get one of those interior guys, they stick around. They generally stick around. They're not like, they don't tend to leave and go to the flashy places. Although I would imagine San Francisco is going to be pretty flashy at least for the near future. But I think San Francisco, when it happened, I wasn't like, okay, I would have taken someone else. But I think as I've digested it, I've begun to really like it. I think San Francisco got a really strong draft in. Let's head over to continuing the second day. You guys took another Trey. You know,
it was Trey to the Bay for the second day.
Two.
Yeah. Oh man.
Trey Sermon, running back, Ohio State, 88th pick. Break it down.
I was so excited with this pick. Like you said, Trey to the Bay for the second straight day. That's what we were saying. I was excited because I didn't expect him to take this guy, in third round. Everybody was expecting receiver, maybe edge, right? And that's what everybody's expecting. But Trey Sermon, this guy could be the future of our backfield. And I love Raheem. I love Jeff Wilson, and I love the players that they have on this team. But last season, every single running back on the roster was hurt. They needed depth, and this is the type of running back that we have not seen on the Niners for a long time. Everybody's a kind of a fast, elusive guy. This guy has quickness, but he pounds you. He runs hard, runs right through those tackles. He has great vision. He carried Ohio State a lot of the times. And it's funny, now looking back at the pro days, they were at Ohio State's pro day, not to study Justin Fields. They were looking at Trey Sermon, I'm pretty sure now, looking back. It's funny how things work. This guy is going to be a star. Kyle Shanahan breeds success with running backs, and they're usually undrafted. Now you have a guy that in the third round could have been a first or second round talent. He's probably top 3 running back in this draft, and he is a damn good running back. He broke Eddie George's single game rushing record for Ohio State, 331 yards against Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game. This guy he paced them. He carried this team a lot. You know, I know Justin Fields was the big guy and the guy I wanted. I watched a lot of Ohio State this year and a lot of their film studying Fields, but I was always looking and saying, man, this guy Trey Sermon is unbelievable, right? So I think Trey was a knockout pick, 3rd round. That's a steal for this guy who can be a 1,000-yard rusher in Kyle Shanahan's system. And I think, you know, with Mostert, he's had a lot of injuries over his career, and that's one thing that that's really hurt him. And I think now with the guy like Trey, and then they even have Gallman and again, Jeff Wilson Jr., you don't have to give Raheem Mostert more than 10 to 12 carries, and he can break one in that many carries. There's a chance for Raheem to just bust out and break because he's got that elusiveness and that shiftiness. He breaks a play or two. He gets tired. You can bring in Trey Sermon, and then he can just pound it, get the defense tired, and then here comes Raheem again, bust open another big run. So I think this was such a smart move, such a clever pick for the Niners to pick. And they didn't, and I know that everybody's saying they need receivers, but they run the ball. They run their offense through the run game. And I think this is the future of the Niners backfield. He's going to be a star for years to come. Him and Trey Lance, Trey Action for years to come is going to be a very good duo because I remember there's a lot of good running back, quarterback duos in the league. And growing up, I remember sitting there watching like Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, you know, Ricky Watters, Steve Young. And I always thought of that. You have a good running back, quarterback duo. It takes a lot of pressure off the rest of your offense. And then even with the Cowboys a couple years back with Dak and Zeke Elliott, man, that was such a nasty duo. And I think Trey Lance and Trey Sermon can be a very dynamic duo. And then that opens up play action. And you got Debo and Ayuk. It's just going to open up the whole offense. So I thought it was a great pick.
Absolutely. And speaking of Ezekiel Elliott, you know, I don't want to scout the helmet. People fall into this trap with Ohio State quarterbacks. But you have this Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Trey Sermon. I don't think Trey Sermon is, like, compared to, like, Ezekiel Elliott, I would say he has most of that talent, maybe 90% of the talent there. He just doesn't have the iconic runs against Alabama in the national championship game, and he doesn't have the crop top that I remember. You know, so when you get a guy like Trey Sermon transferred out of Oklahoma to Ohio State, he's another real Buckeye running back. You know, I again don't want to scout the helmet, but you know, I think he's 90% of Ezekiel Elliott, and you just don't know his name because he only spent 1 year at Ohio State. He shared a backfield with Master Teague, and he doesn't have the iconic run against Alabama. And I mean, even J.K. Dobbins was a multi-year starter at Ohio State. Sermon doesn't even have that going for him. But you know, don't look at the draft pick. Don't look at number 88 and say, oh, he's a 3rd-round running back. No, he's a first-round talent, early first-round talent. We just don't value running backs as much as we used to. And I think trade to the Bay times 2 is going to be glorious for the next 5, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever. You get a uber talented player in Sermon, a guy that has the juice, can break the tackles as well. So you get a little bit of that thunder and lightning with both Lance and Sermon, and it's going to be super exciting to watch for the foreseeable future. And I mentioned before we got on the air that Shanahan and the San Francisco rushing attack is the one offense I think that you don't need a superstar running back, right? Dallas, it helps to have Ezekiel Elliott. You know, Baltimore, it helps to have Lamar Jackson. You know, Tennessee, Derrick Henry is essentially the offense for most of the time. San Francisco is the one spot that you don't need one. But guess what? When you combine, it's like what I think Shanahan's doing with Trey Lance, that when you combine an elite talent with elite play calling, that's when you have a ridiculous season. That's when you have 2012 Adrian Peterson. That's when you have 2020 Derrick Henry. That's when you have these bonkers seasons that, Adrian Peterson had some good years in other years. Yeah, Henry was great in 2019. But when you have that peak talent plus the perfect scheme for that talent, and I think this is a wonderful pick. I know I had other running backs higher than Trey Sermon. I get it. But Sermon's a stud, and I think you're looking at a dynamic rushing attack for a long, long time in the Bay.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the thing that we're noticing here in this draft class is they're building for the future. They know they can win now, and this team is suited to win now, but they also want to win after this season. And you got a guy like Trey and Trey, they're going to be together for several years. That's going to be a great backfield for years to come. And again, like you said, Shanahan can build a team with average players. He's won with mediocre players, I think. We've seen that. And now you start adding elite talent. You get a guy that could have been a first or second round pick in Trey Sermon. You add him to that backfield. This is the most talented running back on the roster. That's amazing. The fact that he could, the players that we've had put up the numbers that they've had, and most of them are undrafted. Now imagine a guy like Trey Sermon with the talent he has. Like you said, an Ohio State running back. Those guys are amazing. And he did play in Oklahoma before. Big time school, big time player. He has the juice to become a star, like potential next. He could be the next Eddie George. Eddie George was a phenomenal running back in this league. I remember watching him back in the day, going, God, he was one of my favorite running backs. Eddie George. I remember I had a Titans George jersey. I'm a Niner fan. I love that guy so much. Like Trey Sermon, he could be that type of running back where you're like, Sundays are coming and you're like, I better have Trey Sermon in my lineup on my fantasy team. And we're going to watch this Niners team to see Trey Sermon. Like, I know Trey Lance is the big name and you got Ayuk and Debo. Trey Sermon has the ability to become that next big superstar running back. And again, like you said, running backs are not as valued as high in the draft, so they slip a little. But when you get a good running back, they pace the team. And in Shanahan's offense, that is the key to the offense. And I was so excited. They drafted another running back in the 6th round, Elijah Mitchell. I think he was a steal too at 6th round. He runs a 4.3 340. So Shanahan's not playing when it comes to running backs. Like I said, all the running backs were hurt last season. He wants to make sure that the depth is there, they stay healthy, and the future is set. Because Raheem and Jeff Wilson, they're on 1-year deals. If they go, then you have Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon leading your backfield. So,
Yeah, we can touch on Mitchell now. San Francisco did double dip on running backs. Of course, Trey Sermon, who we just talked about, Elijah Mitchell out of Louisiana, talented player. I had him a lot higher on my board than 194, so I thought it was excellent value. So again, I would imagine if I scroll through the comments, you're gonna say like, "Why though?" LOL. Get Shi Smith, 5 running backs. Whatever.
Top comment makes no effing sense at all. It's my boy Vlad. Why though? Yeah.
It's like, why not a wide receiver, man? Did you guys forget? Oh, well, I guess that's a need. Our running back is a need. Okay, makes no sense.
This pick is BS. Sorry.
IDK about this one. This pick is BS. But why not an edge? I get it. Running back, it's whatever. But I think Elijah Mitchell is an incredibly talented player. And like we said with Sermon, if you get that right running back, you will be productive. And if you get a running back like Raheem Mostert was on a bunch of different teams, never stuck. He was an undrafted free agent. And he's the guy that has the legendary performance in the NFC title game. He's the guy that's breaking 80-yard runs left and right.
Yeah.
Imagine a guy that's more talented than he is. And I think Elijah Mitchell is more talented than he is. And I think Trey Sermon is certainly more talented than he is. And you're just raising the ceiling on your offense. The floor is going to be the same because Kyle Shanahan is a genius play caller. But you're talking, if you have a top 10 running back, Raheem Mostert's good. Was he ever considered a top 10 guy, top 20 guy? Probably not. And if Sermon or Mitchell in this case could be a top 10 caliber running back, it opens up the offense. You look at Minnesota with Dalvin Cook. When he plays, they're unbelievable. Yeah. When he doesn't play, they kind of suck. So,
yeah.
And you have an even better system with Shanahan than the Kubiak system up in Minnesota. So, you're rocking and rolling. And I get it. Your fans want an edge, a wide receiver, whatever. But I think Elijah is a good pick here at the end or in the middle of the 6th round. Any value you get at this point is just kind of gravy on top of your Trey Lance mashed potatoes. Yes, the Trey potatoes you got.
The Trey potatoes, and I agree. Yeah. This is all. If we're talking about the Trey potatoes, this is the gravy on the potatoes because again, this is a great value in the 6th round. Most people, like you said, had him higher than the 6th round pick, so it was a steal. And again, what Shanahan said in his presser after the draft, he said, "Look, we had this guy very high on our board. He fell there. We're going to take the guy that we had at our board at this position." He goes, "It doesn't matter if it's another running back. He's better off than a player that we didn't really want or need. That way we had ranked lower, and we're not going to reach for that guy." So he took everything he wanted. They revamped their draft grades, their draft grading system. They said they really changed it up this season, and you could tell they put an emphasis on depth and staying healthy and building for the future. And again, Raheem doesn't need more than 10 to 12 to 13 carries a game. You have more depth now. You keep his legs fresh. He's that home run threat. You know, Raheem's the fastest running back in the league. He can break off a 50-yard, 60-yard run. And now you have these young guys that can keep him fresh through the season, because you want if he's your home run threat, you want to keep him fresh. You don't want to wear his legs down. This kid has fresh. Look at how fast this kid is. You could throw him in a couple of times, give him 10 carries, wear the defense down, and then you bring in Raheem. Look how fast this guy is. 4.33. That's amazing. So Shanahan, I loved his draft plan this season. And then the other things that he did, we could switch gears, is he just stacked depth again, right? So he drafted 2 linemen. Both of those guys, were solid picks, because last season our whole O-line got hurt. He drafted 2 running backs. Like we said already, all of their running backs were hurt last season. He drafted a quarterback. Jimmy was hurt last season. And then the other person that he picked, he went cornerback, safety, Lenore, or it was Ambry Thomas, Lenore, and then Hufanga out of USC. So he placed the emphasis on the secondary depth, because we got a lot of 1-year players in the secondary. What we talked about before in our previous show, 1 year contracts for Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, Manny Mosley's on a 2-year deal. They don't have a lot of depth, so I think they really stack for the future. This guy Ambry Thomas could be a future starter on this team. Let him develop, and then the kid Lenore, he could be the slot cornerback and take over for K'Wan Williams. So these 2 young kids can develop and be the future starters of this team. I like this kid, Ambry Thomas. I think he's a very physical, hard-nosed, good in man coverage. He's tall. He ran a 4.40, solid skill set. I think he fits the scheme of the Niners. And you wear number 1 in Michigan, you're a pretty good player, because that's the big dog number in Michigan.
Absolutely. And Thomas, I don't remember where he was on my big board, if I had him on my big board at all, but that's the best thing about the draft, is that these random guys go, and he went 102nd overall. Then it's like, okay, I'm going to circle back, watch some Ambry Thomas, and I liked a lot of what I saw, and I think he's going to bring a new wrinkle into that San Francisco secondary. And as much as I love Jason Verrett, when's the last time he played 2 consecutive seasons? I actually don't think he ever has.
No,
and
again,
Richard Sherman is not on the roster anymore.
He might be though soon. If you heard the latest reports,
right.
he's working his way, and that would be perfect if they can get Sherman back. When you have a guy like Ambry Thomas and then the Lenore kid from Oregon, those 2 kids are very young. You can have Sherman mentor these guys, and it would be an amazing system for them to develop. If you have Richard Sherman teaching these young kids, he doesn't even have to play much. You can give Sherman 10 snaps in the game, mix him around like a chess piece. He's going to be an extra coach on the sidelines. Be great for the development. Lenore, that kid Lenore, he already has a good relationship apparently with Sherman. Like, they know each other, so that'd be perfect for him. But the other guy that we haven't talked about yet, I want to talk about him before we end. The safety from USC, Hufanga, the 5th-round pick. I think this is their 5th-round draft steal. They've drafted Kittle, they've drafted Greenlaw. This guy Hufanga, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, unbelievable talent. He's hard-nosed. John Lynch compared him to himself. John Lynch said he reminded him of himself, John Lynch. That's pretty amazing to say, to someone. And he's trained with Troy Polamalu. You guys might have heard of Troy Polamalu, Hall of Famer.
I've definitely heard
this
of Troy
guy
Polamalu.
has a lot of talent. I know he didn't test well, and he's a little slow, but hybrid player. He could play you linebacker, safety, gritty, hits you hard in the nose. He's going to make you cry. This is a perfect Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch type pick, where it's a bully type pick, and I think the Niners, that's what most of their players were in this draft. were just bullied. They want to draft and build a physical team that's going to hit you in the mouth and you're not going to be able to get up. So let's watch the highlights on this guy. This guy was a star at USC. Star at USC.
That was a super athletic play. Tip it to himself. Then he had a hurdle, like a couple frames. Oh my!
Look at that! Oh,
looking like Saquon Barkley. Oh my goodness!
You,
and then we got the Battle of LA.
Oh, look at this! I remember watching this.
Yeet.
Look at this play. Just jumped the route. Okay, I'm gone. They look at how that's quick, man. I don't know how he didn't test well, but I know he has some shoulder issues. But if he pans out, he's a 5th round pick. High reward. Low risk. If this guy pans out and he can be what you think he can be, look at this. Oh my God! Look at that.
That was explosive. Speaking of the Steelers, that was like when Spillane hit Henry in the hole. That was beautiful.
Yeah. Look at this guy.
Just blowing up a screen pass.
Look at the instincts.
Yeah. And the Rams run those tunnel screens all the time. So just pretend, instead of that random Washington State guy, pretend that's Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, and that's a 2-yard loss. And Sean McVay throws his.
Look at that. Oh, eat him up. That's Cooper Kupp right there. There you go. Look at that. Oh, man.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
That is.
Of course, highlights. You're gonna get plays like this, but I watched some film. I know Justin on the draft show was like this kid out of USC. He's really good. I'm like, okay, I'll watch him. He wasn't in my top 5 safeties, but he really pops on film. The few games USC played, he really pops. And I think you guys had a banger of a draft class from top to bottom. And I've had it going on the ticker. So you started with Trey Lance, of course. That's the jewel in the crown of this draft. Aaron Banks round 2, Trey Sermon and Ambry Thomas round 3, Jalen Moore. One of the guys I really liked. I mocked him to Baltimore several times. I thought he would be a great value in the 4th, 5th round. San Francisco gets him in the 5th round. You had Lenore, you had Hufanga, and then 6th round rolls around. Double up at running back, and you grab Elijah Mitchell. So I think I gave San Francisco a B+, maybe an A-. I don't remember.
Yeah, I give him an A- because I still think they could have added an edge. I feel, because again, Nick Bosa's coming off the ACL. You want to take pressure off him, but I think it was a solid draft. I like the Banks pick. A lot of people say you could have got him in the 3rd, but I don't think so. Shanahan and Kyle said that was their guy at 43, so you got to trust them. I think it's a solid A-. Again, maybe they could have went wide receiver later in the round, but they have faith in the receivers that they have. And there's a lot of young kids on that team. You got Richie James, you got Jalen Hurd, you got Juwan Jennings. Will they step up and be able to do something? Only time will tell. So those are 3 guys that could maybe play their way into a bigger role. River Craycraft, they have Sanu, they have Kevin White, they got Benjamin. So they have some veterans there. I think they could have added a wide receiver, but I like the kid they got undrafted, Austin Watkins, cousin to Sammy Watkins. This kid, to me, I don't know how he went undrafted. I had him as like a 4th, 5th round talent. That was pretty amazing that he was still there. Yeah, but overall, I agree with you there. The Jalen Moore pick, I like too. Like you said, the reason I like him, he's versatile. He can play tackle, he can play guard. And again, you need depth on the O-line. I think that was a good value pick. So overall, it was a good draft, I think, in my standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know when I initially did my draft grades, I was a little bit lower on the 49ers draft. I originally gave it a B-, but that's been trending up. When you think about when I originally did it, it was based on my board. So Jalen Moore was a 40 pick value, so that was an A. But Aaron Banks, I thought was more a day 3 guy than a day 2 guy. But I think Banks is a great scheme fit, and I think Trey Sermon is going to give that extra oomph in the rushing game. And Ambry Thomas, I think I was just a little led astray there. But overall, I think it's a really good draft. And the more I look at it, the more I'm like, you guys picked up 9 good players, 8 good players, plus Watkins as a UDFA. And I like Watkins a lot. I don't have my grades up for him, but I thought he was a stellar player at UAB, right?
Yeah, UAB. He was UAB, solid player. He could be. He's got speed. He's 6'3", with some speed on him. I like the guy. He could be a red zone guy. He could be And he could just be that extra third down receiver like they had with Kendrick Bourne. And I think that was a smart pickup. Again, UDFA, they've turned a lot of undrafted players into some solid starters. And I think the first 4 picks that they had, Trey, Banks, Trey, and Thomas, those 4 guys are potential starters in the offense. So if you get starters on your picks, that's all you could hope for. So I think that's why I feel like it was a solid drafted class, because those guys can be starters on this team, and that's hard to come by, because this is a tough roster to crack. If these guys become starters on this team, that's amazing. We'll see how good of a starter they are down the line, but you definitely have 4 guys that you're going to be able to sit and say, hey, yeah, well, this is a position that's locked in on all those 4 players. So I think it's money.
And I think in a draft like this, with the uncertainty with COVID, you have guys opting out. Trey Lance didn't opt out. The FCS didn't play games. Actually they're playing now, right? Or they were playing early in the spring.
Yeah.
But Lance played one random game. Was it Central Arkansas? Something like that.
Yeah,
and that's not his fault. There were some guys that actively chose to opt out. I think Jamar Chase, when that comes to mind. But it's going to be a weird year. There are a lot of talent analysts that say it's a weaker draft class because you have so much uncertainty with injuries, with COVID opt-outs, that if you're San Francisco and you say, okay, we got 4 guys that will be starters in our short-term and intermediate term future, that's awesome. That's awesome in a normal draft class, let alone a draft class that you may have 75% of the capacity for really good players, and you get four starters out of that. That's awesome value.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely, like I said, that's beautiful value. You get 4 starters. So overall, I think it was great time, great draft. I'm excited for training camp. The schedule release this coming week with the 12th, I think, schedule release. So next time we're talking.
Wednesday?
What's that?
I think it's Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. So the next time me and you are talking, we're going to be sitting here breaking down all the games and exciting game, what game you want to see, and record predictions. So, next week we'll be talking about that. And actually, next week we'll also be talking about rookie minicamp, because it starts for the Niners on the 14th. Some teams already have it, like the Jets. But that's going to be an exciting week. So we have the schedule release, rookie minicamp, and the next time we talk, we'll be talking about both of those topics. So,
man, and you love to have new content after we spent it felt like 3 months just. Are they going to draft Mac Jones? No, they're not going to draft Mac Jones.
So happy they didn't. I tell you, I think every fan's reaction was pretty much, they were screaming, they were hyped up, they were, oh my God, it wasn't Matt, it's Trey Lance. I've seen some of the reactions, and people DM me oh, this was my reaction to getting Trey Lance. They were all amazing. It was just people screaming. I wanted to make a post of just everybody's reactions and do a swipe post of everybody's reaction. There's so many. I was like, I'm not gonna do it, but everybody's excited. And again, it was just the ultimate smokescreen by Shanahan. Real quick before we're done, if you read the Money Quarterback last week by Albert Breer, and then Football Morning in America by Peter King, both of those articles were really great, and they both basically touched upon the fact that Kyle Shanahan had said, hey, look, this was our guy. He went through the whole process. He was wowed by Trey, not only as the person on film, but the person when he met him. He was blown away by his pro day. Got to talk with him. He really loves this kid, and he went through this process, and he knew that was the guy. And then when the media came out and just started throwing Mac's name in the air, he was like, I'm not going to deny this. Let them roll with it, because nobody's going to know who my guy was. And we sat here, like you said, for weeks with the speculation, oh, it's going to be Mac, it's going to be Mac. He laughed. I'm sure he was sitting there laughing in his house going, if these people only knew. It's funny that the media created this big smoke cloud, and he just let it bellow.
I wish I put money on
this. All about it. It was funny, man.
It was plus. I think it was plus 175 or something.
It was
it was ridiculous. I think I have a main banner. Oh wait, I just screwed that up. First, update it. Oh, I guess it was minus 200. Never mind, I was wrong. At one point, it was plus 170. So if you put $5 down, you're making bank. Or well, I mean,
at one point there was no chance that Fields and Lance were going to be the pick, and it was everybody had swore it was gonna be like Mac Jones. It was funny, man. That's why I cracked up reading those articles saying, man, this guy really, really pulled the biggest smokescreen of the whole year on everybody. And then, interestingly enough, not Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo finally broke his silence this week. He was on CBS Sports Radio and he was talking. He welcomed the kid. He welcomed Trey. You know, the story last week that he sent a text to Trey, welcome him to the team. That's pretty classy. That's professional. I got a lot of respect for Jimmy. I always have. And I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes of this guy's really okay. He's really embracing the whole mentor role and he wants him to succeed. And then again, on CBS Radio, he spoke about that. And he said, hey, look, my career has come full circle. I was that young kid trying to take someone's career, basically Tom Brady, sitting behind the legend and trying to take a quarterback spot. And he goes, now I have this young kid and he's going to learn. And I want to teach him everything the way that Tom taught me. And, you know, he said, I'm going to welcome with open arms, embrace the kid, teach him. But he also said he knows it's a competition. And, you know, everything Jimmy said was very respectful and he was very classy about his response. And you gotta love that. You know, he knows there's this kid that's going to take his job eventually, but there's no animosity. He's going to welcome him. And it's going to be a great competition this camp. So. Absolutely.
So one little question before we wrap up. Week 1 starter, Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance?
So I went and discussed this in detail. We could have a whole show on this. I did last night on my live. And I think right now, as we haven't seen Trey play, he hasn't gotten into the offense yet. He's training with Brandon Ayuk, and that's a good start. I think Jimmy has the head start right now. Of course, he knows the playbook. He has the locker room. If he were to walk into the locker room and Trey were to walk into the locker room, people would probably be like, yo, what's up, Jimmy? And you know, that goes a long way. Kittle and him have that connection. But at the same time, Jimmy hasn't played a lot in the last year, you know, so he's not coming in like off an elite season. He's got to prove himself too. Just like Trey, he's the rookie. Got to earn his respect. I think right now it's about a 65%, I say 70% chance that Jimmy's your week 1 starter. I don't think it's, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if Trey starts week 1. It just depends on how he does in training camp, how fast he picks everything up. If he's having an amazing training camp, it might be hard for Kyle to say, we can't hold this kid back, you know, but I think right now Jimmy has the odds-on favorite. Of course, he's the smartest pick. Again, he's coming in. He's your starting quarterback. You're paying him that money. And you know he's going to be that mentor, that bridge to Trey. There's no rush to start Trey right now. So I think at the moment, 70%. But I think Trey has a good chance of coming into this camp and putting his name on that title. So we'll see, though.
Yeah, I'd love to see Trey start week 1 because, like I mentioned earlier, I think the only concerns you have are the lack of snaps and the accuracy, and that's something you improve. At least in his case, that's something you improve with more reps. So you get him going against, let's say they play Arizona week 1. You get him throwing against Byron Murphy, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, Budda Baker. Throw him into the fire. You know, I agree that Garoppolo is probably a smart choice and probably will start week 1.
Yeah.
But I want to see Lance week 1.
I think everybody wants to see him. But this is the other flip of that, too. So this is one of the other things I was talking about. So you start Jimmy. Okay, it's fine because Trey's not going to mentally take that as a bad way. He knows he's the rookie and he has to earn his spot as a starter. That's not going to really mentally mess him up, right? So if, let's say, Jimmy gets hurt or he struggles and then you're saying, okay, it's Trey's time, he's going to be excited. He's ready. He wants to prove himself. He says, okay, I've been waiting for this moment. I didn't get the start initially. Now I'm going to show him what I'm all about. Time to shine. So that's good for him, right? Now, if Jimmy starts week 1 and he starts messing up, the media is going to come at him and say, hey, look, you already had a bad play. Oh, he threw a pick. He threw another. They're going to eat him up. Mentally, it's going to be tough. So then you got to put Trey again. Now, if you start Trey week 1 and then you keep bench Jimmy, mentally Jimmy's going to be a little pissed off, I'm sure, because he's like, well, I thought I was supposed to be the mentor. And if something happens to Trey, let's say he gets hurt or something happens, and Jimmy's in there, he's in a mentally bad place. So I think it's smarter, again, to start Jimmy. You don't want him on a bad off negatively, because if he has to come in later down the season, that's just bad for him mentally. Because again, Trey's not going to take it bad if you tell him, hey, you're going to ride the bench for the first couple weeks. It's cool. He knows he's the backup. He's the rookie. So I don't think it's bad. But if Trey does come into the season at some point let's say week 5, Jimmy's hurt, you put in Trey or whatever happens, and then Jimmy's healthy, you do not put Jimmy back in. You let Trey ride it out. You don't take him out. You put him in, and you never look back, because that, if you take him out, mentally, that's going to mess him up. That's why I didn't like what the Dolphins did last season with Tua Fitzpatrick. I did not think that was smart for them. Mentally, down the line, that's going to hurt him, because you got to let the kid make mistakes and learn from it.
Absolutely. And even like it helped him in the short term, but they ended up missing the playoffs anyways. So the help was drafting Jalen Phillips instead of having like the 14th pick.
I know.
So you're in a Miami was in a goofy situation. San Francisco, you're going to have 2 starting caliber quarterbacks. And, you know, I guess whoever starts, you're probably going to start winning football, or you're going to win football games.
Yeah,
so,
whoever starts is going to win games, because you got a defense, you have a great offense. So I think you can win as many games as you can with Jimmy as you can with Trey on this offense. I honestly do.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a fun training camp battle. I'm ready for the controversy and all the crazy speculation. So you're right. That question you asked, that's going to be the big question of training camp, because before it was, who are they going to draft? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Now it's going to be, who's going to start, Jimmy or Trey? Jimmy or Trey? So I'm ready for that question to get old.
This is a much better conversation than Jimmy or Sam Darnold.
I agree. I do agree about that. Oh, man.
Oh, man. So that's going to wrap us up for today. Make sure you like the stream, subscribe to the Youth Stadium YouTube, follow Raj on Instagram at OurSF 49ers. Follow me if you want. I don't know why you would, but hey, you can follow me at Mr. Splashman19. I post sports content sometimes. Make sure you join the discussion on Youth Stadium. Tell us why you think Trey Lance is God. Tell us why you think he sucks. You know, it's just at our SF 49ers or at Splash for me. Tell us, say this Trey Lance kid sucks. You know, Jimmy should start, but you know, it's been great having you on. Per usual, we'll be back next Saturday with some new content. You love to have new content in the middle of May. Got the schedule. You got mini camps. What a time to be alive. Any last words before we end the broadcast?
No, pretty much just I hope everybody has a good weekend, and look forward to next week with the schedule drop and rookie mini camp. So that's it.
Yes, sir. And with that, peace out, folks. We'll see you next Saturday.
All right. Take care.